Heather Hoynes, and I'm here to teach you how to make a homemade Tootsie Roll. I wanted just to tell you a little bit about myself and why I love to cook. I love to cook because it's science, math, and creativity, all in one. I love the way that when you make something, it comes out completely different. The states of matter are completely different. I also love to be creative and add my own flair. And then of course I love math because you have to measure stuff out so it's exact. So let me get started in teaching you how to make a homemade Tootsie Roll. The first thing is we need a recipe, which we have. We need half a cup of honey, and I've already pre-softened that, and this is from Kellogg's Farm over at Cal Poly. Fresh honey. It's very fun to bring your own jar and take care of that. That's a blast. And then we're going to add some melted butter. Notice my butter is solid, so I'm going to have to melt that. That'll just take 15 seconds or so. In the meantime, we're going to add a teaspoon of vanilla. And I'm measuring it in the cap because I don't like to do dishes, so I quickly discovered that that works. And, oh, that's 15 seconds. It needs a little more. We're going to go ahead and whisk that. If you were to just use your honey without melting it first, it would be hard as a rock because it's cold right now. So we want to heat that up. When we heat things, it changes the way we can work with it. And that's what Tootsie Rolls are all about. Interesting fact about Tootsie Rolls. So I'm going to go ahead and add my melted butter. Interesting fact that they make 64 million Tootsie Rolls a day. That's a lot of Tootsie Rolls. Okay. We added some unsalted butter, and now we need to add some salt. So here's a little pinch of salt. Just brings out the flavor. Kind of the way that coffee works with chocolate. They add to each other. We're going to continue whisking. If you can see, when I whisk, I'm adding air. It's different than stirring. So we're adding volume. It's expanding. We're making it bigger. The next thing we're going to add is a 1/4 cup of cocoa powder. And also, whisking helps you sift it so we won't have some clumps. Ooh, wow, that really made it look different, didn't it? As we're adding different ingredients, it will change the way it looks and the way it feels. That's the science here. That's the part I like. All right. I like this recipe because I like using honey as much as I can without using sugar. But we do have to use some sugar, and we're going to use confectioner's sugar today. And confectioner's sugar is powdered sugar, and it's easily to make. Oops. You can easily make this at home. If you're out, you just put your sugar through a food processor and you grind it to a powder. So easy peasy. Lemon squeeze. Another interesting fact about Tootsie Rolls that I'd like to share with you is that yesterday's batch, a little bit of yesterday's batch, obviously I'm not the Tootsie Roll company, but is added into today's batch at the Tootsie Roll Factory. So that theoretically, a little bit of the first batch ever made is here today with us in when you buy your Tootsie Rolls. Tootsie Rolls was one of the very first penny candy that sold for a penny, and they still make one today, although it's probably not as big. It's probably like about that size. The next thing we're going to add is powdered milk. Now, we all know that milk comes from a cow, so originally it was a liquid which has been dehydrated into a powder. So this would be, although this is a cup and 1/4 of milk in powder form, it's really probably almost close to a gallon or 2. So we can see the way that changes. We're going to stop whisking and adding air, and we're going to switch to stirring. And I'm going to use my scraper. We're going to do this in 3 parts. Okay. We might need all of it, we might not, but we'll see how it goes. This is really cool. You're going to love this. Woo! Don't breathe when you do that. Otherwise, you'll turn into a cow breathing in all that milk. Just kidding. Okay. This is getting awfully, you can come a little closer. You can see that this is getting to look like a little bit more like what a Tootsie Roll consistency is. But we're gonna keep stirring that in. And at this point, I'm going to take it out. So I'm just continuing to knead it. I went ahead and put it on my breadboard to help incorporate it, because one of the things that I have to tell you about cooking is the most useful tool in the kitchen besides food would be your hands. So any Italian grandmother will tell you that, or any Italian really. But we're making an all-time American candy, and I think, like I said before, it's a penny candy because they sold it by the individual, and it was the first of its kind to be individually wrapped. So if you know, everybody talks about kneading dough, but I don't think anybody ever teaches anybody. You flatten it, and then you fold it in and in. So we're gonna go one more time, a little bit more. You really don't need to use all of the 1 1/4, but I think it's worth it. That's the healthy part, right? Not the sugar. You should have at least more milk. It's good for you. I don't know how that somebody invented dried milk. How did that even come about? Did they like leave it out and it dried up into powder? Kind of interesting, huh? Don't you think? Probably great for the time of the war, don't you think? When people didn't really have refrigerators. Pretty useful. It's not like evaporated milk or condensed milk where they cook it so much. Well, this is evaporated milk, but condensed milk where they, through heating, they condense it so it's very concentrated. I don't know if anybody's ever had a reduction sauce, but it's a lot like that. If you take, or lemon concentrate, any kind of things like that, somebody's heated it so much that it's condensed into a smaller amount. So it's evaporated. They've taken the water out of it. It's concentrated. Okay, so I have here unbleached parchment paper. I don't like bleach in my food, and you shouldn't either. So, you know. So we've taken some dried ingredients and some wet ingredients, and we have formed a different state of matter. We now have a ball, right? Well, now we're going to add something interesting. Probably could use a little bit more of that. I'm going to go for a little bit more. So hang on. So once we have this ball, just because it's sticking to my hands, I don't want a sticky Tootsie Roll. I want a nice caramel, a chocolate caramel, chewy. We are going to put it on our unbleached parchment paper because we want it to stay brown. And we're going to let it sit here for 5 to 10 minutes and we'll see what happens. I'm not going to touch it. So let's see how our Tootsie Roll changes. And then we'll come right back and then we'll cut it up and we'll be ready to wrap it up for a penny. As you can see, our Tootsie Roll has changed matter completely. Without touching it, it has now come to its almost final state of matter. The real final state is in my mouth and in my tummy. But before we get that part, we're going to go ahead and butter our knife so that our penny candy does not stick to our knife. And we're going to slice it. And then we're going to wrap our candy, our first individually wrapped candy, starting back in 1896 in the roll. I've pre-cut the parchment paper, and there's our very first homemade Tootsie Roll. I'm going to keep making these so I can share with all of my friends. Bon appetit!